our video sharing down a little bit smoother than it was last time. So we'll see if I figured it out or not. In fact, I think just to, you know, do away with any anticipation or anything, we'll start off with that. There's several videos. Some of you have shared, some I've taken myself, and they're not really in any particular subject order, but they're all really cool. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that portion of the program, and then we'll get to the still, because I know, you know, as the evening goes on, we gets later, gets closer to bedtime. When we get to the still photos, you know, if you want to doze off, go ahead and do that. But anyway, let's go ahead. I'm going to give this a try, and we are going to start off first of all with a video that Julia had shared a while ago. This was a couple of weeks ago. And all right, let's see if I can get this to come up. Uh-oh. All right. Is there any chance you guys are seeing a bird right now? No. Are you seeing my downloads folder?
Yes, we're seeing your folder.
This worked flawlessly when I did it myself. And I even watched the recording to see. Let me try it again. All right, so I'm gonna stop this share. Let me try this a different way. I just saw it again, and it's really neat. What we're gonna hopefully see here is a red-breasted nuthatch foraging for seeds on a pine cone. All right, so let me go back to you guys again. All right, and we're gonna share our screen, and we're gonna go to Nope, that didn't work. All right. Well, you know what? Let me just grab one of these. Maybe we'll get to that one in a minute. No, it's saying, please move this window away from the application, from the shared application. Oh, man. All right, let me stop sharing that. All right, so I'm going to try it one more time. And I'm not going to do the same thing, because that's the definition for insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. All right, so if I share. All right. All right, are you seeing spiders? All right.
Yes, spiders mating.
What I did differently, but so this is a lady spider there on the right, and this is her gentleman caller on the left. Now, I have to say, this was probably 11:30 the other night. I'd let the dogs out, and as it become my ritual, now that I'm catching flies for the praying mantis, I'm not spending so much time underneath the deck light at night. I'm exploring more around the yard. And I have been keeping an eye on this spider, and lo and behold, she had company the other night. And this went on and on and on. I would say I've got maybe 15 minutes of video that I took. And let me pause this here for a second. So what we have going on here right now is this is still the acceptance, I guess, part of the activities. He had come in on a strand of silk from the left. And this was probably maybe 10 minutes into my watching him that I thought maybe I should get some of this down on video. He was very, very cautious. And anytime she moved towards him, he would move away and then reapproach. And when they got to this point, this wasn't even the actual mating part. This is still, I don't know. It reminded me of, you know, kind of like the Three Stooges, you know, slapping each other. There's definitely maneuvering going on, but what he's got to try and do is get his head, which is facing us here. He has to get to her reproductive area, which is this orangish yellow part in that's right where her abdomen and her cephalothorax come together. And it took quite a while before that occurred. And you know, they're just kind of, you know, flicking at each other, but it was so interesting. And I think you can see her fangs are out right here, that reddish color, those are her mouth parts. Now, there's another video that is much longer that I didn't download, but if you'd like to see it, let me know, I can send it to you. But it is part of the actual mating process. I actually got tired and went to bed before they were finished. And then what was really interesting was after that, she packed up and disappeared. Her giant web, which was more than 2 feet across, that I'd really come to look forward to looking at to see what she was catching in the yard, it disappeared. It's gone. So I don't know, now I have to prowl around a little bit to see if, and maybe do some digging online too. I've got a couple of spider books, but they don't really, they're more field guides that are for identification as opposed to explaining processes like this. But I want to see where she went and where her egg sac is going to end up. But it was it turned out to be kind of a long night for me. In fact, the dogs, so 3 dogs, you know, I let them out. They actually got bored and they all went up and laid down on the deck waiting for me to come in. Anyway, that was one part. So now we're going to try this again. I don't know what I did to get it to work, but I've got another one here. So we're going to share again. And we're going to try, let's try this one. This was another nighttime video. So this is a Ring doorbell cam from our friend Laura in Batavia. Wasn't that awesome? That's it. The rest of it is just looking out on the neighborhood. So let me back it up again. And if you've got sound on, listen. Can you hear the whir of the wings and the beating? That long string thing here, I'll bend it, bring it back again. That what looks like a sort of like a string sticking out of the side is not an antennae. That is the proboscis. Now, Laura told me that the Ring doorbell cam has a light. And so I'm wondering if this night flying moth, which by the way, I'm pretty sure it's a sphinx moth. And I asked Laura if she by chance had tomato plants, and she said she did around the corner. So I'm wondering if this is Manduca sexta, which is the tobacco hornworm moth, or I think the name of the moth is the Carolina sphinx. But you know, these are nighttime pollinators, and I would imagine when the moon is glowing and there's a light colored flower that's catching those moon rays, it might mimic, or it might look, this moth might be mistaking the glowing doorbell for a nighttime flower. But pretty cool, huh? Mothra. Rah. All right. Let's see where this takes us to. Oh, you know what? Don't look, because we're going to actually have a special guest in a couple of weeks. Let's watch. All right. Can you hear the cardinal singing? I thought this was interesting. So, I've been writing the column in the newspaper now for about 14 and a half years. And I'll admit from time to time, especially weeks when I'm crunched for time, I'll go back and I'll look at dates that columns have run in the past, and I'll recycle topics, because nature's nature's different every day, but there are certain things to expect at certain times of year. And usually when we get into August, I've run it at least twice. There's a column I call The Sound of Silence, and it's about how in the mornings you get up and it's not quite time for the insects to start singing yet, but in the springtime and early summer, those early morning times, sometimes starting as early as 3:30 or 4, although I'm not usually getting up then. I might be up for another reason, but getting a drink of water or something. But the birds are singing early in the morning, and then as we get farther into the season, their singing slows down. Singing is used to declare territory. It's there to communicate with a mate. It's there to kind of give the fledglings a sense of protection. They know mom and dad are nearby. But when all of that business is done, which it mostly is by now, the birds go quiet. Some of them just plain disappear for a while. They molt, they get ready to migrate, they put their winter plumage on. There's lots of different tasks that they have to attend to. But anyway, I just took this video over the weekend, and I thought it was interesting that we're into September and the cardinal is still singing. So I'm thinking it was a late, it might have even been a third nest, and they're to the point now where those youngsters are finally leaving. Now, it might have just been a late second nest. Cardinals pretty regularly will nest 2 different times in our area. Things did get off to kind of a slow start in the spring, the cool temperatures, the rain. There might have been a nest failure somewhere along the way. But anyway, listen, when you're up in the morning, listen, and you probably won't hear a whole lot of birds singing anymore, because we're in that time of year where they're not anymore. But there's at least one St. Charles neighborhood with a bird that's still singing. Now, let's see if I go this way. All right, now this is not singing. Oh, boy, that's really faint. Can you hear that? Meow. There were 2 catbirds that were not at all happy that I'd come out in the yard with the dogs. It's pretty faint. In fact, if you look straight ahead in, let's see, should we call this an eclectic yard, a diverse yard, a messy yard, whatever your taste in landscaping is, you choose that word to describe what I've got going on in the backyard. If you look straight ahead, though, there's a pokeweed, and the catbird was in there, the one that first started the mewing. But then there was a second one that was off, it would be to the right of the screen, that was answering it back. And they were equally displeased at me being out in the yard the other morning. But now that's not really a song, that's a call. Birds might still continue to call to each other. That's more of a bird to bird communication. Sometimes it's a warning. But it's not that song that we heard the cardinal singing that this is me, this is mine, this is my family, this is my space. That sort of vocalizing is done for now. Now, if we go back one more, oh no, let's go the other way. We already saw them, and we saw these guys, and we heard this guy. Let's go to this one. All right, so this was just absolutely astounding. This was Saturday night. This is up in Elgin. This is a building that's owned by the school district up there. And it was spotted by our local chimney swift aficionados, Rich and Marion. They said that they went to a parking deck in Elgin, and they just looked around looking for swifts with their binoculars. And when they saw a group of them, they headed in that direction. And this one, they really hit the jackpot on. This was a display that went on for, oh gosh, 20 minutes or more. We were sitting in the parking lot. This building, the district actually has recently abandoned it. You can see there's a maintenance issue. That window there on the left looks a little iffy. So I don't, and my concern was that maybe now that it's not being used, get rid of. Doesn't sound like it. I have a friend that works in administration at U46, and she said no, there's no plans to tear it down or anything. If they did, I would hope that they would try to replace the chimney. But this went. So these are birds, again, we talked about them when we talked about the chimney swift rescue. These are birds now that have started their migration and are on their way to South America, to the country of Peru and surrounding areas. So what we're seeing here, these aren't necessarily all Elgin, Illinois chimney swifts. These are birds that likely have traveled down here from Wisconsin and Michigan, maybe even up into Canada, and they found this convenient rest. Now you can see some that are going in, but there's some that have changed their mind. That's one of the thrills of watching swifts in migration. And remember too, we talked about how these birds are related to hummingbirds, and how when they move into the chimney, they use those helicopter-like wings to orient their bodies so that when they go down into the chimney, they end up orienting themselves so they're facing up. Not bad. We had a discussion while we were watching these birds. We were wondering, is it better to be the first one in so you get a nice long rest overnight, or is it better to be the last bird in so you're up at the top? Because the birds aren't terribly messy. They don't have the same reputation as, say, pigeons, but still they're going in after a day of foraging in the sky, feeding on insects. Their tummies are full. There's going to be some digestion that occurs overnight. There's going to be some droppings in there too. So I don't know. I would probably, plus I'm a bit of a night owl myself. I think I would opt for being one of the last birds in, but super cool. And this is not by any means the only roost in the area. They are everywhere. Laura, I know you mentioned the one over here, in fact, right behind Good Natured World Headquarters here at 3rd and Illinois Street. Some of us think of that as the Napa Auto Parts building. It's not anymore. It's a workout place, and there's something called the Water Bar there too. And then where the chimney is I guess it would be on Illinois Street, and it's still painted blue to go with the old Napa theme. And there's actually a motorcycle mechanic shop that's there too. So I want to get over there. And Susie, I know you've been going over to Marbury Cleaners. The Swifts have moved back into that chimney after a couple of years of absence. I'd also like to go and check out the chimney at Potawatomi Pool building, because that has had sporadic use. I know there's a family that nested in there this summer. I was watching them. I saw, I don't know, maybe 8 swifts, 8 or so flying around. It's hard to keep track when they're flying around. I was watching them in the daytime, but I'm curious to see if that's a migratory roost too. So if you know of a chimney that's prominent like this, or is maybe in an area where there's not other chimneys, another clue is if it's on an old building, because that's where they're usually not lined, and a lot of the older buildings too, they're not capped either. So lots and lots of activity up in the sky as these birds make their way south. So keep that in mind, and maybe you can get out. They'll be here for another few weeks until usually by the end of September. Depends kind of on the availability of bugs. If we have a cold snap, they might get on the move even sooner, but I haven't seen anything in the forecast that's looking like that in the at least the 10-day or so. So take advantage while they're here. It's super cool. All right, let me see. I'm gonna minimize this, and I'm going to try one more time for red-breasted. All right. So Julia, you had sent me this video a while ago, and I believe what we're seeing here, so we're looking at what appears to be a white pine tree, and there is gleaning going on. If I'm looking at this correctly, I believe this red-breasted nuthatch is pulling seeds out. Now, let me stop this video here so you can see. That's not a good angle. You can kind of see there. That bill, so they do a couple different things with that bill. Well, they do a lot of different things. They feed their young, but they will harvest sap, and you mentioned that in your email. They will line a nest cavity with that, but I kind of think, looking at where this bird is poking its bill, I kind of think it's going after the seeds that are inside that pine cone, and it's just one of those adaptations that is just so perfect for the job. The bill has a kind of an upturn to it, which makes it perfect for reaching in and pulling out. If you've never looked inside a pine cone, I encourage you, I challenge you to go out and do that. The pine seeds that are inside, so they're not the big pine nuts, like you buy, and so, well, pine nuts do come from pine trees, but what we have around here, the seeds are much smaller, and they look like almost like little maple samaras. They've got a wing on them, and the seed is at one end. Let's see, I drag this up here. Nope. There we can see the bill. And it is plucking away. Red-breasted nuthatches, if you there are some that nest in this area. They typically head farther north, but we do have a fair number of yards around here that have had nesting nuthatches. There we go. Now you can see the bill. And Julia, your yard, you've got some arborvitae there. You've got you've got actually a lot of different evergreens there that looks like home to them. And so they're perfectly fine hanging out. And you've got the food there too, the natural style of bird feeding. So it's very cool, and appreciate you sending that video. All right, I'm gonna stop this part of the share, and we're gonna go over to our other photos that we have from this past week. Since we're here, let me stop and we'll see. The ladies are emoji spiders. Yeah, I'm still prowling around the front yard too, looking to see if there's any signs of an Argiope spider. I had two. They're the black and yellow spiders. I had two of them last year, and a few weeks ago, I think I showed you guys, actually a couple months ago, I showed you guys a picture of an egg sac that one of them had left. And I found it when I was doing something I always say not to do, which is clean up your yard. Obviously, I don't do it that often, but I have a clematis by my mailbox that I was wanting to encourage some new growth on, and I snipped right where there was an Argiope egg sac. So I thought I put it back in the right place where it was partially hidden, but then the next time I checked it, it was torn open and somebody had eaten what was inside. So I'm still looking around to see if maybe there's an Argiope somewhere that I just haven't noticed yet. But these other orb weavers, they're just as entertaining. It's just they do everything at night instead of in the daytime. So what kind of a spider are they? I think, Sarah, they're either the Neoscona, and that's probably the one I'm leaning towards. That's a genus of orb weavers that we have in this area that don't have a lot of pattern to them. But honestly, I didn't key it out to species. I was more interested in what they were up to than what they were. I'll take a look again. Oh, but that reminds me, and I don't know, bear with me here. I'm going to see if I can pull this up and share it with you. I found this really cool, let's see. It's a page on iNaturalist, and it shows spider, the patterns on their bellies. Because as much as there's, spiders all have patterns on their dorsal side or their backs too, but there's a lot of variation in those markings and even the colors within a species. But the ventral marking is kind of a giveaway for some. Here we go. All right, let me see if I can now share this with you. Boy, all right, fingers crossed. We're going to see if we can pull this one up. But it's a really neat reference. And if you, if you see a spider and you're looking at its back, see if there's a way you can get around to the other side of the web and look at the pattern that's on the belly. All right, let's see, where would I find this? All right. So here, this is identifying common orb weavers from the underside. And it's a page in progress, and the author is encouraging people to add to it. But it starts off by showing you sort of a guide to what you're looking at underneath a spider. And then it goes down and it shows you, like, so here's our black and yellow garden spider from the underside, and the banded Argiope from the underside. And then we get down here. So cross orb weavers, this is really common in our downtown areas. These are, they're a European species, but they've gone worldwide. They've just traveled everywhere. A lot of times when you're up in a skyscraper in Chicago and you look out a window, you see cross orb weavers. But that's what they look like on the underside. You see, these to me look kind of like golf clubs. And then we go down here. Marbled orb weavers are, they're the pumpkin orb weavers that we see in the fall. We're always dazzled by the oranges and yellows on their backs, but this is what they look like underneath. The shamrock orb weaver has these really prominent bands on the legs. It's also got a marking that is sometimes easy to see. Sometimes I find it hard to see, like a 3-leaf, like a shamrock on its back. But here's it's very plain looking belly. I don't know about the giant lichen, cat-faced, Nordman. the barn orb weaver, Cavaticus, this is Tricia, I was just talking with you about this last night, the barn orb weaver. Those of you who've read Charlotte's Web, does anybody remember Charlotte's last name? It was E.B. White's little poke at the scientific name. Charlotte's last name is Cavatica. And here is, so we know, what species she is too. She's a barn orb weaver. Here's Neoscona. There's, it's a Western. Arabesque, I think, occurs here in Illinois. Red femur, I'm not familiar with. Larinoides, this is what was, we were looking at when I was doing the program from over at Potawatomi, the furrow orb weaver, and also yeah, was it Cornutus? No, that is the furrowed. It seems like there was one other one here, but it's not pictured. So anyway, it's a neat reference, and it encourages you to look beyond what's sometimes the obvious part of the spider and look underneath, kind of like, opening up the hood. But yeah, I've gone to this several times to try and learn more about what the undersides look like, because sometimes that's easier to decipher than what you're seeing on the back. All right, since we're here, let's go over here to the weekend pictures. And we're going to start here. And this is, Bill and Kathy, you were there. Susie, you were there. Other folks too may have participated. This is the planting that occurred over, this is, we're not looking at a satellite view of Illinois. We're looking at a drone photo of the Illinois shaped rain garden that was planted at the King County Farm Bureau last week on Thursday and Friday. Our friend Todd, who took our King County Certified Naturalist class a few years ago, he had seen it mentioned and he offered to go over and take these photos. And I think it turned out really well. Let's zoom in here. So these paths are gravel and then larger boulders, and it's the major rivers in our great state. This is, again, this project was done with some grant money, but it was to help solve a problem of drainage. There's the parking lot. If we were to go up into, well, if this is a map, we'd go up into what's Wisconsin. It's the parking lot of the Farm Bureau building, and water just sheets off of there and rushes down. There was a smaller rain garden down here, I believe. And now this whole, let me zoom back out again, this whole project is planted in different types of native plants. Something I learned at the event last week is that little chunk of property there, it's right next to Costco. It's, let's see, Oak Street would be to the south, and then the Costco parking lot is there. On the, well, south would be to the left, north would be to the right. You can see some of the lined Costco spaces there on the right. The Farm Bureau property is unincorporated, so it's on well and septic, which suddenly makes watering this big garden quite a daunting task. It's kind of funny, Todd, the fellow who took this photo, as well as he shot some cool drone footage too of the project. He's had several instances this summer where he's gone out, he's gone camping different places, and he's gotten absolutely drenched. So I told him he should bring his rain attracting karma to the garden. Didn't work. We had a kind of a dry weekend here in St. Charles. Other places didn't. Some other places got rain. But I thought it might be helpful too for the folks over at the Farm Bureau to see this and see, these darker areas, I believe, are what have been thoroughly watered And then there's some other areas that are less dark, and so maybe in need of a little more water. But I know they're encouraging people, if they're in the area, the Farm Bureau was going to be leaving out hoses and buckets and watering cans, and anybody who felt like it could come by and drop some water down. They were also, the last part of the project involved putting a lot of mulch down to help keep in the water that was there. A little bit of irony, this line right over here on the Costco side, so they've got their plantings or bushes, whatever they are. There's a line of sprinkler heads there that water the Costco side of things. And we were kind of joking, and wouldn't it be nice if they could turn those the other way and help water Illinois for, at least until we get some rain. But anyway, very cool project. And for those of you who helped out, I know the Farm Bureau is extremely grateful. Check it out. Very cool. And now you know what it looks like from above. Now, as we move along, minimize that. There we go. So this is a view of the lovely, somewhat unsettled sky. I was doing a little walk with some folks who had attended a program at Potawatomi. This is in the native plant garden, and we looked up, and the sky was interesting, but then zoom in here. What do we have here? Oh no. So while I was doing this walk, there was I think a wedding going on, and I think they let balloons go. And it wasn't just, everybody was holding a balloon, letting it go. It was big bunches of balloons, which is the absolute worst way to let the balloons go. Not that there's any good way, but there was a lot. These were mylar, they were tied together. This is just, I don't know, I'm thinking as a member of our green team here at the Park District, it probably won't go anywhere, but I'm going to see if maybe we can suggest no balloons at outdoor gatherings, because this is making a huge mess somewhere. And is that a little bug? Look at that. I didn't even notice it. It looks like a spreadwing damselfly in the air. Right? That's not on my screen, is it? Nope. How cool is that? All right, so not all things to rant about. There is something nice in the picture too. But anyway, these things come down. They get caught in our trees. Birds get caught in the ribbon. Animals foraging on the ground sometimes snack on those ribbons too. Farmers have had trouble with cattle who have consumed balloons that have come down. So anyway, tonight's rant is officially over. Let's go on. The goldenrod, we talked about it, and it's in full bloom now, and there are so many creatures that come to goldenrod. This is a time when there's asters, there's goldenrod, there's white snake root. A lot of the other flowers though are ending their bloom time. I was talking with some friends over the weekend about trying to find rusty patched bumblebees. That's the species that has been declared named federally endangered. And in August, they head for the second or the later blooming monarda or bee balm plants. But even that is done now for the year. So anyway, if you see some goldenrod, spend some time and look closely. Here we've got one type of bee mimic. I don't know what kind it is, but we can tell it's not a bee. If we zoom in, it's only got 2 wings. It's got those big old fly eyes too, and it doesn't have any bee tongue sticking out either. It's got a fly mouth there. So it's hanging out on the goldenrod, as is this bee mimic here. This is one of the, excuse me, syrphid or flower flies. If we zoom in here again, 2 wings instead of 4, but that lovely and very effective bee-like pattern. Big old fly eyes up front too on this one. And we've got a bumble. I always look for these guys. Boy, I have a feeling I might have swallowed a bug. Sorry about that, folks. But bumbles, and then this Daddy Longlegs here, I was watching it for, I would say, 5 minutes. I wasn't watching it exclusively. I would take a picture or something and then I'd go back to it. But I think it was feeding on, either the pollen or the nectar or both. I could see its mouth part moving and I looked and I didn't see, these guys, they will eat insects. I've often seen them scavenging in spider webs, eating the leftovers that spiders have left behind. But I didn't see any sort of insect there at all. I think it was really feeding on some part of the plant, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was there for a long time, chewing away. And then we talked about ambush bugs a week or two ago. As all these other insects are flying in and feeding on the pollen and the nectar of these late summer blooming flowers, there's of course the things that want to feed on the things that are feeding on the pollen and the nectar. Well, if we look really closely here, we see this isn't just one ambush bug, but this is 2 ambush bugs. So kind of excited, as I think next year we'll have ambush bugs again on the goldenrod in the backyard. But I also wanted you to look at, and it does get a little fuzzy here when I zoom in, but this green part here. So there's the light colored, almost reddish colored eye, and then the antennae that's pointing down like a maybe 730 or so angle off of the top of the ambush bug. This green here, that's their the forelegs. This is what they use to catch the other bugs with. Apparently they catch each other too, but it's like, it looks like Popeye's, big old forearms. But this is what they use. They're ambush bugs. They ambush their prey. They don't go chasing after it. They wait until it comes to them and then they grab onto it. Kind of the same way that a praying mantis does. The style of hunting anyway is similar. These guys, though, they've got that big bulk there that helps them overpower whatever their meal of choice is going to be. And then this was a walk along the river. This was last Friday. And I saw this brightly colored insect here. This is an Ailanthus moth. And if we zoom in, it's not super focused, but it's you can kind of see the pattern. Very eye-catching insects. And they're named Ailanthus. Ailanthus is also it's the genus name for this moth, but it's also the name of a tree you might know as the tree of heaven. And I looked around and I didn't see a big tree of heaven. Now this is, a lot of people look at these as trouble trees. They're sort of invasive. Well, they're not sort of, they are invasive. They seed prolifically, they'll take over, they colonize waste areas pretty rapidly. Remember, not only looking at them, seeing those leaves, but there's a very distinctive odor if you crush those leaves, because they look a little bit like sumac or even black walnut leaves, but they've got a very distinct and I think stinky kind of odor, but it's what the caterpillars of the Ailanthus moth feed on. So that's how the moth gets its name. And so I would say that this moth was maybe a foot from this little seedling here. But I looked around, I didn't right away see the mama Ailanthus tree, but it must be around there somewhere. But it's kind of a fun little exercise. When you see one part of a story, look around and see if you can find another part of the story too. When you know there's something named after something else, see if you can put the two together. Now, with that said, so this, I don't know if this is going to play. Oh, it is. So this is a little video from that same outing. This is a picnic table. And yes, this was a walk with some of the nature nerds. But it wasn't just a walk. It was also a trip to Harner's because it was pig roast night. And this is one of the picnic tables that's right behind the building. We got our pig roast dinners and we carried them out and we sat outside and we were joined by this little creature. And when I first saw it, I was looking, and if we look underneath it, so caterpillars, because they're going to turn into a butterfly or a moth, they are going to have their 6 legs that they keep throughout their life. And those are going to be up front here by the head. But then caterpillars also have these prolegs, these little sticky pads here on the back that help them cling onto whatever their food source is, some kind of plant. But it gives them that extra grip that they might need. It also helps when it's time to pupate, especially in the case of some of our butterflies when they're hanging upside down and they spin a little pad of silk, and those rear prolegs help them grip onto that before they go into their chrysalis. So anyway, this little guy is trucking along, and I thought I saw a lot of prolegs. One pair here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, 5 sets of prolegs. That's a lot. I bet this isn't a caterpillar at all. I bet it's not going to turn into a moth or butterfly. I bet it's going to turn into, and I couldn't remember it at the time, but it occurred to me later, a sawfly. Sawfly larvae, we see them in the summertime, especially later summer. Sawfly larvae have a lot of pairs of prolegs. Well, it turns out that it's not a sawfly, that butterflies and moths can have up to 5 pairs of prolegs. But if there's 6 pairs or more, then you're looking at a sawfly. So my whole train of thought that evening, I was probably just overcome by all the pork I was eating. But this isn't a sawfly larva at all. It is actually the caterpillar of the grape leaf Skeletonizer, which is a moth that lays its eggs on grapevine. Now, looking around where we were feeding, I didn't see any grapevine, but we're pretty close to the river, and wild grapevine grows pretty much everywhere. I thought this was a cool image here, not mine, by the way, that shows the moth antennae. Moths, remember, they either have thread antennae that have no club on the end of them, or they've got these feather-like antennae, which is what this particular individual has. But anyway, this little guy probably is going to overwinter as a pupa. I'm going to guess it's going to make a cocoon. Sometimes the fuzzy caterpillars will spend the winter just down in leaf litter, but either that or as a pupa, and then next year it will emerge as one of these guys. Now, every day, without fail, I'm outside looking for bugs to feed the praying mantis, the little Euro mantis, which I'm starting to have some doubts that Manny mantis is actually a male. The abdomen is getting larger. One of these days I'm going to have to look more closely and recount those abdominal segments to see if there's more than I thought. If there's 8 instead of 6, then it's a female, but I've still not very good at catching flies, so it usually takes me a while, but it also gives me a chance to see all kinds of other things. So this is another part of my yard. This is at the base of the silver maple tree. In the springtime, that's the root that I balance the bucket on to catch the sap to make the syrup with. And I saw this pretty large hole here. And then I saw something else here. So what it is, and I would say it was not quite half an inch, maybe a centimeter across. And then this was nearby. This is the exit hole for one of the cicadas. The cicadas that you heard in the cardinal video that was playing. Okay, not too far from this too, I found another cicada carcass. Another, I think it's a lyric cicada, completely hollowed out and still crawling on it. But there are still cicadas emerging, even though there's cicadas falling out of the trees and dying. But anyway, so the hole and the shell were all pretty close by. If we go back to that original photo, you see the hole down here at the bottom. And if we look up here towards the top, there's the shell. We can put the story together. Fed on the root, climbed out, shed that skin one more time, climbed up the tree. Hopefully found some cicada company and ensured that we have more cicadas next 2 to 5 years for these guys. But anyway, lots of stories to be told when we look around. Now, since we're looking at holes in the ground, Diane, you had sent this one in, and it is indeed, as you suspected, a crayfish burrow. And we can tell it's a crayfish burrow and not, say, a chipmunk hole or anything else by the wet nature of the soil. I guess this was during a mushroom foray. You and the other Diane were out looking and found this really textbook type of crayfish excavation. If we look on the left side of the photo, the soil, there's a lot of clay there, is in lumps. And that gives us a little clue as to how these excavations occur. These crayfish will use their claws to roll. They'll scrape balls of dirt, and then they roll them up and deposit them outside of the hole. And then they go back down and they scrape some more and they roll it up and they dump it out. Sometimes these chimneys can, which is that those balls of dirt get placed higher and higher. You can see why they're called chimneys. But in fact, down in Southern Illinois, boy, I saw one time, it was almost 10 inches tall. It was just incredible. It was in a marsh too, in a swamp. So the soil was really wet and really stuck together well. But chipmunks wouldn't like to burrow in wet soil like this. Like you thought, Diane, this is exactly what you had said. It's a crayfish burrow. So keep that in mind if you're walking around and you see a pretty decent sized hole. But the excavations are very wet, then you know you're in crayfish country. And let's see, we got one more here. Yeah, so this, and I was really surprised, Jerry, and you took this photo. This is at Graceland Cemetery in Chicago, and I don't know my Chicago geology very well, but I was surprised at how sandy the soil is there. But Graceland Cemetery is known for its coyotes, and I think this was a burrow, a den that was excavated by them. And I was looking at that sand. Looks like there was a lot of activity there, but I'm wondering if those might have been raindrops.
Actually, it had been sprinkling on and off that day.
Okay,
And Laura, I didn't see any tracks really, but we weren't paying attention. We should
okay,
have been. We were looking at the tombstones instead.
sure.
It's not crazy far from the lake.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm thinking that's where all the sand comes from.
Okay, well, there's
There's
that.
also if you see those rocks there to the right, Pam, this was the
Mhm.
one part of the graveyard or the cemetery that it was like a wall of those rocks, and this is above the normal level. I mean, just by maybe a foot. It was raised above the level of the rest of the cemetery. So I don't know if that was
Could have been
Bill
Phil.
put in there, at one
Okay.
point. But it's very old cemetery. But like Jerry said too, it's not too far from, the lake. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It was interesting though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Laura spotted it because the pile of sand.
yeah. Well, so dens, despite everything Beatrix Potter wrote about and, having these cozy little underground homes for different animals, usually the den is only used during, when they're raising their pups. So the what I had first thought was tracks around there. I'm thinking is not, because it would mean that something else had taken it over, because the coyotes have been done. They've been out of their dens now for a while. I wonder if that stick that's in the middle there, that sort of Y-shaped stick, if somebody stuck that in there to see if there's any activity going in and out.
I think that's actually a root.
Both parts of it?
I think so. Well, for sure the right side.
Yeah,
Not
I think
sure
the
about the
Y
left.
thing might be a branch actually.
Okay.
Fallen branch.
She has
Well-
better glasses than I do.
Yeah, it's a fallen branch. Either that or it's a root that's been cut because you can see the one end of it.
When the den was being used, I would think that would have gotten more pushed off to the side, but people will do that sometimes to see. Another trick is to sprinkle flour in front of a hole and see, if there's fresh footprints going in and out. But yeah, sometimes just partially blocking it with a stick or something like that can give a clue as to whether something is still using it or not. But yeah, really cool.
Yeah. The thing that surprised me, even regardless of what type of creature it was, I would figure you'd want to be in brush or someplace a little bit more hidden. And it was this grassy area with a few trees and nothing hiding the den. So I was like, wow, that's weird.
Yeah. I wonder if because they usually will do this excavation in the early springtime. And maybe it seemed like a good idea at the time. There's not a lot of foot traffic in the cemetery, I would imagine, when it's still cold out. But I know at Hickory Knolls, there's been times where we've spotted dens that have been dug, but then they end up not being used. I don't know if how many dens coyote might dig before they decide to actually use one, or if they only try to dig one and it's only if something disturbs them that they move. But I can think of two different instances, one on Water Tower Hill at Hickory Knolls and one out way at the back of the property where there were holes near the trails that were dug, but then we set up cameras and there was never any activity. So maybe our own, activity caused the coyote activity to move elsewhere. Or maybe they dig one and then they change their mind. I don't know, but still a cool find and might be worth keeping an eye on to see, because once a hole is dug, there's lots of things that can use it. So it might be kind of cool to see if you go back there again, see if that stick moves, if it is a stick.
I think I'm gonna go there in late October for a cemetery tour, 50 Ways to Die. So I'll have to peel off and check out our den.
Check that out. Yeah. And take notes too. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's not something.
Hopefully I won't get bit by a rabid coyote and die that way, and I'll have to add it to the tour next year.
Yeah, trip and break an ankle on the
Right.
hole. Very nice. I think I just got one more photo here. Yeah, this was the scene below the chimney swifts the other night. If you happen to come upon something like this around dusk in the next couple of weeks, look up in the sky, just like these folks are. This is it's an aerial show that you really don't want to miss. Chimney swift migration of 2022. All right, you know what? With that, I'm going to stop the share. Come back and let's see. Okay, down balloons at Otter Cove. Let's back up here. So the catbird, the catbird call is the mew, but the catbird song, they're a mimic. And so their song just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it incorporates sounds from other birds. I wonder, can I share? Oh, this might be pushing my abilities. I don't know if I can share a sound file. I think I can share, because I've got a recording here of catbird. There we go, gray catbird. Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Okay, we're gonna stop it, but hopefully that sound played for you. So the catbird, like the brown thrasher, northern mockingbird, those are mimics. So they just take all kinds of bits and pieces from their environment, and it's usually birds. Bird songs, sometimes some species will incorporate other songs. Starlings, who are not mimics, but they're mimics in that they repeat other sounds they've heard. Sometimes they will incorporate car alarms and other kinds of beeps and twangs that they hear. But anyway, the mew is the annoyed call of the catbird, and then the long song is what they sing when they're singing earlier in the season. And yes, so Meredith, thanks for letting me know about balloons at Otter Cove. I think I am going to bring it up. We have a green team meeting on Thursday, so I think I'm going to bring up balloons as something we might want to address. We just had a kind of a cool victory with our green team, and we, so many trash cans get filled on weekends from our the leagues that play here, our soccer leagues, lacrosse, football, all the sports that come here to our fields to compete. And they bring their snack, and it always includes, wrappers so we're working, we've come up with a pack it in, pack it out agreement, which is going to really help with our efforts to keep our parks clean and help with our recycling too, because so much of our recycling was getting contaminated with wrappers that were not recyclable. So now people were going to have to sort that out on their own. Kind of an exciting thing, but balloons are going to be a part of that too. I hope. I'm going to bring it up anyway at the meeting. Let's see, Jerry, crazy number variety of bees on the wild quinine. Oh yeah. The plants are almost done blooming. Anything that's blooming now is going to have a lot, because the later we go in the season, the fewer options there's going to be for pollen and nectar. Yeah, keep your eye on those natives.
Yeah,
And
what those wasps are that are kind of big and bluish black.
yeah,
They were on there in addition to like the regular bees and bumblebees.
there's one that's called the great, I think it's called a great black wasp, but it does have a kind of a bluish cast to it. Now there's one that's got a really narrow waist to it. That's a type of mud dauber, but there's the great black wasp that's gosh, maybe 2 inches, the female. And they're one of the wasps, it's solitary and it stings. I want to say it's orthopterans, like crickets, katydids, and drags those into its underground burrow and then lays its eggs on it. And that's what its offspring feed on, is the stung.
Try an idea. Cool.
Yeah, yes, go look at that and see if that is what it was. And if not, there might be some others, but I have mountain mint in my yard and it attracts the great black wasp every year. I'll see several of them.
Fun.
And Diane says, what goes on inside the crayfish burrow? Crayfishing. They kind of hang out down there. They dig down far enough. It's a shelter for them during the day, and then they come out at night and forage in the space around where their burrow is. There's usually different chambers within the burrow. It might go off in a couple different directions, but they dig down far enough so that they've hit water, and that keeps their gills moist and allows them, they're still then able to breathe as long as their gills stay moist. One of our local burrowing species is, they keep changing the genus names, but the species name is Diogenes, which refers back, I think it was a Greek character. Diogenes was a philosopher or a thinker, and he did his thinking in a tub of water. And so I always picture like a crayfish, sitting in a tub down underneath the ground. But I mentioned to you in the email, Diane, going out on a crayfish foray. We did this with the natural history survey classes several years ago. You can go out and when you find one of those burrows, if you have a trowel, you can dig it up. And this is per the state, what's the name for crayfish scientist? His name is Chris. But yeah, I said, are you sure we're not displacing them? I said, nah, he'll just dig another hole. It'll just, they'll be fine. But you can follow and you can feel with your fingers where the burrow goes. And you keep bringing up that wet mud. And then you finally, sometimes you get nipped, but you end up pulling up the crayfish. But the burrow is where they take shelter during the day. They don't want to be too active when the sun is out because they could dry out. But then they stay down there and then they come out in the evening, the nighttime, and they also then overwinter underneath in those burrows as well. What is in the river parallel to Arthur Anderson, Accenture, looks like algae. It might be duckweed. We're seeing more and more as the river has, there's pockets where there's a stronger current, and then there's areas where it's still. And in those still areas, there's a lot of plant life. The sediment that backs up from the dam adds a lot of nutrients that these different plants can grow in. Now, duckweed is a little floating plant. I don't know if it was it light green?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I'm just looking at it now. I took a picture. It's light green, yellowish.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to send that to me, I could take a look at it too.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Duckweed. So we used to have what I thought was a really nice bunch of duckweed over at Delnor Woods in the front pond. But it apparently didn't meet the aesthetics of, I don't know if it was park users that complained or who, but anyway, they ended up putting a big aerator in the front pond, and now there's no more duckweed, but there's also not many turtles, not many frogs. I mean, it really, sometimes we would even see wood ducks in that front pond because it was peaceful and it was quiet, and now it's noisy. It sounds like Niagara Falls over there. But duckweed likes to go in these quiet areas where there's abundant nutrients. I'm going to guess that's what it is, Meg, but if you want to send me a picture, I'll take a look at it. Duckweed is
I'm doing it right now.
the smallest flowering plant. So they float, the roots actually hang down from the water's, the surface, they hang down, and then there's a teeny tiny little flower that emerges on those plants.
Thank you, Pam.
Yes, I hear it. Yeah. Diogenes was searching for truth, but didn't he search for truth from his bathtub or a tub of water? I know there was a tub of water involved somewhere.
There was. He was controversial, but yeah, he was searching for truth. That was his main thing.
Yeah.
It fits. That's okay.
And now the crayfish are carrying on.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I love it. All right, folks, does anybody have anything else they'd care to share? If not, now next week, we'll still have our meeting. I have to I have to do a little talk for our board. So I'm hoping that I can do the program then from the native plant garden behind Potawatomi again, but we'll see how that goes. But we'll get together then, and it will probably be kind of dark, but I think there's enough light out there that we can still manage to make a go of it. And so until then, I have a lovely, good-natured rest of your week, and see you then. Take care.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam. Good night. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, Pam.
Oh, it's past bedtime. Night, night.
Night.